Hi, I'm Alex. I'm the CEO of Trampoline. Now, I've spent my career leading and building high-performing teams and spend all my time now working with leaders on how to engage their staff and be amazing leaders in their business. In this video, you'll get a fantastic insight into practical tips around the actions and behaviours that you find in high performers. You'll see tips on the importance of self-awareness for leaders, how self-reflection impacts you as a leader, building personal resilience, having a growth mindset, what your role as a leader actually is, why delegation is your best friend, how not to react under pressure, finding your zone of genius, not always being the smartest person in the room, and the fact that you don't need to do everything. Now, these tips are from our high performance leadership app. We call it HPL. If you're a person interested in high performance, you can download the app from the App Store or Google Play by simply clicking the first link in the description. All right, let's jump into my best tips around self-leadership. Trying to be the chief to everything officer. How to cope with pressure in a positive and sustainable way to keep bouncing back. This is the lesson for you with self-awareness. Yes, this can sometimes be uncomfortable, but it's self-leadership is all about self-awareness and self-reflection. If you want to lead others in a way that inspires them, you first need to understand what makes you tick. This is why the best leaders focus so much time and energy on what's going on between their ears. They know that to lead others, they first need to lead themselves. Yes, this takes work, your ego will get bruised, you may be uncomfortable at times, but the learning journey you will go on as a result is really worth it. Once you tap into the skill of self-leadership, you really start to leverage your performance and that of your team. So here are 10 lessons drawn from my experience of self-leadership. To lead others, you need to first lead yourself. This one's all about self-leadership, and the first step in that journey starts with self-awareness. Yes, this can sometimes be uncomfortable, but it's absolutely necessary. Watch this lesson for some practical tips on how to increase your self-awareness and become an even better leader. If you are leading other people or aspire to do so. Why? Because you're leading a team of other humans. And how can you possibly be able to lead them in a really great and empathetic way if you aren't aware of what goes on inside your head? So we're talking about what triggers maybe some stress responses, what you're really great at, what environment suits you, all those sorts of things. Now, the villain in this piece, of course, is going to be something that we all have, and that is an ego. Now, our ego is there trying to prevent us from being under threat, right? So this is where deep down inside, even if you don't really admit it, you start to feel threatened by other people, you worry that you're not good enough, you don't want to say something or ask a question for fear of looking like an idiot. You know, all those things, that self-talk that goes on in our heads, this is all because our ego is trying to protect us. So this is why we go deep into self-awareness here, to actually understand what's going on, and then we can respond better. Now look, I have led lots of teams, big, small, and everything in between, and this is something that I have practiced for a very long time. Now, I think I'm relatively good at this now in terms of understanding what I'm doing when I'm in the zone, when I'm really effective, what I'm doing when I really drive my team totally crazy. Sorry guys. What I'm doing, what environment suits me the best, all those sorts of things. Now, it doesn't mean that I suddenly stop reacting badly or stop having a stress response or veering off path. But what it does mean is that I can bring myself back and I'm aware when it's happening. And that is the big thing. So here's a couple of things for you to do to start really getting deep into self-awareness. So the first thing I want you to do is journal. Now, before you cringe potentially, if you haven't done this before, it's really easy. Don't make it too big. We're talking 10 minutes a day, write whatever comes into your head. And if you're a bit stuck, just start writing about goals, objectives, things you want to achieve. maybe things that you're scared or nervous about, what really drives you. No one else is going to see this but you. So this is absolutely your private thoughts. It's very cathartic to get it down, and it will prompt so many great ideas. So that's the first thing I want you to do. 10 minutes a day. If that feels hard, try 5 minutes a day. It's about starting to build the habit. The second thing I'd love you to do is write a list of say 7, 10 people that you really trust, whose opinions you trust. Now, what I want you to do is write them an email and ask them 2 simple things. What do they see you doing when you are in the zone? So when you're at your most effective, you're energized, that they'd love to see you doing more of. And the second thing I want you to ask them is, conversely, where do they see you getting stressed or maybe triggering in a different way? Because you trust their opinion, it won't feel threatening. It may be a little confronting, but suddenly you'll have this amazing objective feedback and insight into the sort of things that make you tick. So next time you're feeling inside a bit stressed, maybe a bit overwhelmed, maybe a bit threatened, I want you to go, okay, something's triggering this. Out of the work I'm doing, what could be going on here? In this lesson, we explore the art of self-reflection and why it's absolutely essential for anyone aspiring to take on or excel at a leadership position. The good news, it's easier than you may think. You just need to make the time and be prepared for some introspection. Hi guys, it's Alex here. So let's talk about self-reflection and why it's so imperative to be an effective leader. Now, really great leaders take time to transform themselves before they try and transform the business. Now, ever heard of the definition of insanity? Well, this happens when you do the same thing over and over again with the same result. And this is what's happening when leaders don't take time for self-reflection. They keep doing the same avoidable failures over and over again. Now, the villain of the piece here, of course, is that we don't really want to reflect on potentially what we could have done better or maybe didn't do so well. Why? Because it speaks to that innate fear that we all have that maybe we're not good enough, not smart enough, or that something else is going on there. And of course, philosophically, you're thinking, well, on the surface, I literally can't do anything more. I can't do any better. I can't work any harder. Now, for me, as always, hey, I've had the highs and the lows, right? That's just life and being a human. So even though I practice self-reflection all the time, it's something I really have had to work at, and I'm gradually getting better. But this is where you have the highs, the lows, you think back to some things and go, gosh, did I really do that? But it is so much more powerful when you actually take that time to reflect on what's happening. The minute you can tune into that and get that awareness, you actually then have the secret to creating an environment where you are compelling most of the time. So you're almost stacking the odds in your favor. So here's the plan for you. I want you to pick a time in the day that is the same time. Now, you're an early bird like me, where you like to get up in the morning before everything gets totally crazy, or maybe you're someone who likes to reflect later in the evening. Now, you can take some quiet time, you could go for a walk, you could journal, you could I know, that drives me a bit crazy too, but I do love yoga. Whatever it is, you need to bit of self-reflection. What went wrong? What could you have done better? How did you react to things? And yes, this is very closely linked to developing your self-awareness. So make sure you watch that module too. So next time, I want you to pause at the end of a day. That's all I want you to do. There's your trigger. At the end of your next work day, pause and have 10 minutes for self-reflection on actually how the day went. Now, I can tell you that leaders that practice self-reflection with me and who really commit to it become incredibly effective and powerful and compelling leaders. It's a difference between bumbling along and making the same mistakes again and again. And In this video, we discuss the importance of personal resilience and how resilient you actually are. We like to think that we have it covered and can bounce back when things don't go our way. Unfortunately, as leaders though, we often feel that being resilient and bouncing back must come automatically with the gig, and they don't. Like all good things in life, this is a skill that needs to be practiced. Check out how the best leaders build personal resilience and learn why they invest so much time in building this skill. To check out the app, simply click the top link in the description. Frustrations. It never goes to plan, does it? Particularly if you are in a big organisation. It's really important that we have enough energy and resilience in ourselves to keep bouncing back. Now, sometimes, of course, you're thinking, God, but it feels so hard. I'm exhausted. I literally cannot work any harder. Now, I know when you say that is completely true. You are working hard. You are trying your guts out. You're burning the candle at both ends. And I know that because you guessed it, I have been there and done that, and I still catch myself doing this from time to time. Now, the trouble with that is that, of course, there's only so much internal reserve that we have. You cannot just keep putting everyone else first and just keep grinding through and trying to do stuff without filling up that energy. Remember, you've got to fill your own cup before you can be effective or useful to anyone else. And it's hard, I get it, it's hard when you are someone who's driven and you want to move fast, action-oriented, all those things. You feel like, well, I can't take a step back. But here's the thing, you have to if you want to be an effective leader. So here's a couple of tips for you to implement right away and start forming those habits to build your resilience. So the first thing I want you to do is think about, honestly, when was the last time that you had a break? Now, yes, a long break is important, but if that feels too hard at the moment, think bite-sized chunks. When was the last time you just went for coffee by yourself, had a morning off, did something that relaxed you, had an early night, turned the email off at 5 o'clock? So I want you to make a list of things that you can do to start to create a bit more time and space so you can do something that is relaxing and fills your energy. The second thing I want you to do is write down and describe, if you like, what you think your role as the leader is. Now, as I've said before, being a leader is not about doing everything. You are there to create an environment for your team to be successful, create an amazing team, and curate that environment and culture, and remove roadblocks. You are not there to do anything else. So I want you to write a list of everything you're doing and everything that you can delegate to your team. The third thing, which is related, is enlist your team. Why as leaders do we feel that we need to go it alone and have all the answers? That is a very quick route to failure and actually falling in a heap. So enlist your team. Talk about what you're striving for, the vision of success, and how they can help and get involved along the way. And the fourth thing, which is so important, is you need to have that definition of success and celebrate small wins along the way, because otherwise the goalpost just keeps moving and the setbacks become the only thing that you focus on instead of the really cool stuff along the way. And of course, with every failure and setback, you're actually learning something. So learn to celebrate those failures as well. So next time that you're feeling like you're about to drop in a heap, having a growth mindset is all about being curious and open and believing that the skills you were born with are just the starting point. In this video, we explore the difference between a growth and a fixed mindset and how to grow that curiosity and learning muscle. Having a growth mindset and actually why a fixed mindset is so destructive as a leader into a business. Now, when you have a fixed mindset, what's going on is that you believe that this is the best you're ever going to get, that you can't improve your skills, your abilities, your intelligence. Now, sit in that for a moment. When you're feeling that way, are you actually going to put yourself in the path of potential failure? Are you going to put yourself in a situation where you might not look the smartest in the room? Aren't you going to start to feel threatened instead by any situation or person or opportunity where you can't totally craft the outcome? Now, this is a really negative and exhausting place to be, and you can see why that mindset as a leader means that you will never take the necessary risks or make the necessary decisions that you need to keep your business moving forward. Now, having a growth mindset instead means that your attitude is that you can always improve your abilities, skills and intelligence levels, and there's heaps of scientific evidence now around brain plasticity that says absolutely we can. So people with a growth mindset totally believe that with practice, perseverance and the right attitude that they can absolutely build new skills. Now, doesn't that feel lighter? Don't you feel like, wow, that's pretty cool? And you become more curious. So that's how the shift between a fixed and a growth mindset really has a big impact on our teams and our business performance. Now, I certainly have been on this journey myself, and when I reflect on my career and people ask me, how did you plan out your career and how far you got? Well, I actually didn't have a linear plan. But the thing that I realize I've always done is be very open to opportunities, be very curious, and throw myself into things when I don't have all the answers and just look to get the best people around me. So here are some tips for you to really develop that growth mindset. First things first, stop talking about failure. Language is important, right? So instead of saying failure, think of it as a learning experience or a learning opportunity. So replace failure with learning. The second thing is, I want you to really think about being more curious. What if we tried this? Then actually brainstorm what's the best thing that could happen, what's the worst thing that could happen, and then what's the most likely thing to happen. By just going through that simple process, you're placing less importance on the worst case scenario. You're kind of acknowledging that, hey, we don't know what's going to happen, but let's roll with it anyway. The third great tip is to do this with a team. So take risks together. This is not just about you having to have all the answers and looking like an idiot if something doesn't come off. So engage your team in how you can learn, grow and be curious together, and then do some really simple things like a half hour or a 1 hour bit of a retrospective meeting when you've tried something, and actually examine what you learned, what you do differently, what you're going to do next time, and set that next goal. So if you try doing some of these things.
So what's your role as a leader? In this lesson we ask the question, what is the role of a leader? Now, it may seem simple, but for many leaders the temptation to keep doing it all is really hard to resist. Here's a sneak preview. High performance leaders don't do much doing. They know that the magic happens in other areas, and their role is all about setting direction, putting together a great team, and ensuring there's an environment for them to thrive in. And this is a great chance to learn more about how you should be defining your role as a high performance leader. If this has sparked your interest, click the link below and download the HPL app for more content and your very own leadership coach.
Pressure or feeling negative in some way, that also is amplified in terms of the impact to your team. Think about it for a second. They're looking to you for guidance, for a supportive environment, for help, for assistance to remove roadblocks. So that's your role as a leader, remember. Now think of a few things that can manifest. So when you potentially get a big deadline or something that's really put the pressure on you from your boss, are you passing that down the line to your teams? That's increasing pressure for them. Are you pushing greater deadlines on them? Are you giving them more stuff to do? Are you yourself getting involved more in the busy work because that's how you feel that, oh, I've got a bit more control over the outcome, is to do more?
go to more meetings, be on more calls, take more emails. Now, of course, all of those things have this knock-on effect downstream to your team, because at the biggest level, you are less available for them. Because you're rushing around and you're under pressure, you're probably also less inclined to listen, you're more impatient, all those things. So this is why your behaviours really amplify to have a negative impact on your team. So the thing here is, on one hand you might think, well, yeah, but I'm the boss, the buck stops with me, I expect my team to lift. I counter that by saying your role as the leader, remember, is to remove roadblocks, create a safe space, and support your team, which will actually get the result. So here's a few practical tips for you. And I'm going to talk to you here about the concept of triggers, because no matter what's happening at work, guaranteed something else is going on with you. It might be in work, outside work, you might just be having a day. We're humans, right? So this is why I go straight to what's triggering my stress, grumpiness, short-temperedness, whatever the case may be. So the first thing I want you to do is actually carve out some time at the end of the day or the start of the day, call it 15 minutes, and journal if you're so inclined, or even just have 10 minutes of self-reflection. And what I want you to write down is all the things that you think trigger a stress response in you. Is it a certain person? Is it a looming deadline? Is it a feeling of being unprepared going into a meeting? But I want you to write those things down. Now at the end of the week, or give yourself a few days, I want you to reflect on all the big things that have happened during the week. Have there been key meetings? Have there been key conversations, events, whatever it might be? How did you react in those? Were there examples where you were potentially stressed or short-tempered or having these negative impacts on your team? The final part of this is to then try and correlate the two. So in those moments where you were feeling stressed and under pressure and you kind of admit to yourself that you were being not the best leader, what was the underlying trigger that made you feel like that? Now, if you repeat this on a regular basis, and again, remember, we're forming habits here and applying this knowledge, what actually happens is that you start to get, you guessed it, more aware of one, the things that trigger you, two, how you react, and the minute that you start to be more aware of those in the situation, you're far more well equipped to actually put.
In this lesson, we discuss the importance of learning how to delegate. No matter who you are, there's usually an inner control freak in us all that tries to do everything ourselves. Many leaders think that by delegating, they aren't doing their job, and actually the reverse is true. Watch this lesson and discover how delegation can set you on the path to leadership utopia.
The signs of what you're doing, why it's a bad zone, and how to get you out of that with some really practical tips. Every time something comes across your desk, are you just so tempted and actually give in to doing it yourself because it's faster? Maybe you can do it better, but generally because it's just faster and easier. Every time your team is involved in a meeting, do you feel the need to be there yourself? Do all roads lead to you? This is always a sign when everything ultimately has to be signed by you or approved by you. Now, I might hear you saying to me, yeah, Alex, I get that, but at the end of the day, I'm the boss. The buck stops with me. That's my job. And I say, well, yeah, but not really. Your job as the boss is not to do everything. And here's the reasons why. One, you simply cannot be effective if you are spreading yourself too thin. Not only do you not have enough time and mental energy to make great decisions, but you will be the bottleneck. The second reason is, if you're doing everything, you're actually failing one of the key tenets of being a leader, and that's learning or developing your own team. So if you don't let them step up and take on more responsibility, how will they ever develop? The third thing is that guaranteed, if you're doing this, things are going to fall through the cracks. So the first thing I want you to do is a really easy cue. Every time something comes across your desk or someone comes to you with something, instead of you just automatically doing it because it's faster, I want you to delegate that out.
Now the second thing is, and I can hear you potentially thinking, yeah Alex, but who do I delegate that to? There's your second task. I want you to write a list of everyone in your team, and I want you to think about when you go on leave, unless you tell me that you can't go on leave because you're doing everything, but when you're physically not there, who do you delegate to and what do you delegate to them? What are the checks and balances that make you feel comfortable that they know what they're doing? So that's your second thing. Make a list of your team and a list of all the things you delegate to each member. Now, next to those names, I want you to do something that's a bit next level. I want you to put trust at the top of a column, and I want you to give those staff members a rating out of 10. Now, as a rule of thumb, if you give them less than a 7, meaning you're not really sure if you can trust them, then there is another issue for you to address. More on that in a different module. But for now, that's your cue to think, why did I rate someone less than a 7 about trusting them with some...
Let's talk about pressure. Not all pressure is bad. It's how we react to it that can make all the difference. So how do you react under pressure? It's not a sin to feel the pressure, but it sure is a bad place for your team if you react badly and take them down with you. In this lesson, we uncover some great tips that the best leaders use to manage pressure so that you and your team can thrive. Want to learn more about high performance leadership? Then click the link below in the description. Default, any senior role means that there's a certain amount of pressure that comes already baked in. That's just life. And the great leaders that you see are the ones that are seemingly effortlessly dealing with that pressure without really batting an eyelid. So let's look into what causes us to feel stressed and why pressure can be very positive or have a negative impact. So the first thing that's going on here is that, of course, there's two types of pressure in this scenario. One is the internal pressure that we put on ourselves. I need to do more. Am I doing enough? Am I smart enough? I need to have this answer. I'm the boss. I shouldn't be reacting to stress like this. That's not my role. That kind of dialogue. The second form of pressure is, of course, external pressure. So this is, gosh, this deadline is actually unachievable. We don't have enough resources. There are too many competing priorities. These expectations are unrealistic, etc., etc. Now, having those two things there, you can actually start to identify them, and then, of course, as soon as you can identify something, you can start to actually plan for ways around it, through it, and that's where you start to cope and feel calmer under pressure. Now, I know for a fact I've had lots of high pressure roles, and I learned very early on that I had to learn how to actually have resilience and energy and perspective so that I didn't crack under pressure myself. And these are my best tips for how to do that for yourself. So the first thing I would say is really do some self-reflection on what triggers a stress response for you. Now, in other episodes, we talk about self-reflection, we talk about self-awareness, so I highly encourage you to watch those because, of course, it's all interrelated. When you start to understand what triggers a stress response for you, now it may be that you feel unprepared or out of control or something else is going on, then you can start to plan for ways around it and to actually deal with it. Number 2, I want you to now identify what are those internal pressure points and the external pressure points that I talked about earlier. Make a list of each. The minute you identify them, they become less overwhelming, and again, you can start to put a plan in place to deal with those in a more positive way. The third thing is be organized. So now you're starting to identify what's triggering you, how you respond to things, are they internal, are they external? Now start to get yourself in a space where you feel organized and prepared. That is one of the biggest causes of pressure that I certainly found in my career, is if I didn't feel organized or in control, that really made me feel stressed. Now I want you to enlist your team. So another great episode to watch here is what's your zone of genius? and actually how to delegate. Those two episodes are really relevant here because you need to go back to your role as a leader, not to do everything, and enlist your team in breaking down the barriers and the stress points. And the final thing is you need to look after yourself. Look after your energy, your fitness, time out for yourself. Watch the episode on personal resilience. When we stay in our zone of genius, we are at our most effective and compelling. So what are you doing when you are totally in the zone? Call it a superpower, a special skill, or the genius zone. We all have one, but more often than not, we don't know what it is and definitely aren't leveraging it. If you are in a leadership position, the ability to play to your strengths becomes even more critical. Find out how to work out what you are doing when you are at your most compelling and how to use it to your advantage.
Working out what you do when you are at your most energized, compelling, and your most effective as a leader. Now, the villain of this piece, of course, and I can hear you thinking it, is that that's great in theory. I'd love nothing more than a job where I only did what I love to do. But that's not possible. I've got all this other stuff I've got to do. Now, I get that in corporate life, that is true, but you can still zero in on where you're at your most effective. And in fact, you need to if you want to be a really effective leader. Now, we've talked in other modules, which you can tune into, about self-awareness, about the importance of personal resilience, about self-reflection. So this is the same sort of thing. You need to really understand what it is that you do that has the biggest impact for your team. And the minute you can actually work out where you're playing your best game, that also helps you work out who you need to recruit around you. The fact is that we aren't all good at everything, yet we keep trying to spread ourselves way too thin, do everything, even the stuff that we really hate doing. Now, you tell me of one example when you're doing something that you hate, when you're really great and inspiring at it. Yep, doesn't happen. Now, for me, my zone is anything that I kind of call front of house kind of stuff. So things like talking to you on a video, presentations, getting people to buy into an exciting vision, inspiring action and motivation. They're the sort of things where I know I excel at. Now, the heap of things that I'm not great at would be lots of things like PowerPoint presentations, Excel spreadsheets, admin, logistics, the list goes on, trust me. And I know when I veer off the path into those things that I actually really don't like doing and I'm not that great at, I become grumpy, tired, a bottleneck to the team, and just downright frustrating. Now, this is probably what you're doing with your team as well. So here's a couple of things that I want you to do to really start to zero in on your zone of genius. The first thing is I want you to ask 7, 10, maybe more if you like, people whose opinion you trust, what they see you doing when you are in the zone. So when you're energized, up and about, enthusiastic, effective, having a great impact on the business. That will quickly show you some themes because sometimes it's hard to identify in ourselves. Now, once you've done that, the second thing I want you to do is actually engage your team in this conversation and do the same process with them. Very quickly, you'll see where any gaps are collectively as a team in terms of skills or passions, and where you actually have other people that are totally in the zone doing things that you hate. The minute you start to get this balance happening, this is where the best teams excel. This is one of the key parts actually of becoming a...
In this video, we examine why we often feel the pressure as leaders to be the smartest person in the room. If you're feeling the pressure to have all the answers as the leader in your business, this is the lesson for you. Many leaders fall into this trap, and all it does is limit the growth of you and your team and put massive pressure on you. The best leaders are always recruiting people smarter than them. Don't be the smartest person in the room. It's actually liberating. If this has sparked your interest, click the link below and download the HPL app for more content and your very own leadership coach. Limits the growth of the team, the business, and who you actually recruit for your team to get the best results. So here's why we do this. Yep, it's that old villain, our ego again, that's telling us inside, hey, you're the boss, you're expected to have all the answers. You need to show that you deserve that promotion to leader and that you actually are the smartest person in the room. Now, from long experience, even if you're not actually consciously thinking that you need to be the smartest, think about some of that internal pressure that you're putting on yourself about, wow, I've got to be the best. I've got to be the most efficient. I've got to set the example for everything. I've got to have, the complex answers and be able to solve every problem. And I learned pretty quickly that that is a really fast road to burning yourself out and putting a lot of pressure on yourself. And as I said before, it also means that you're not open to other ideas from other people who have different perspectives. It's not about being smarter, it's just the diversity of thought and experience. So if this sounds like something you may be suffering from, then this is what you need to do. One, this goes back to self-awareness. Now, I want you to watch that module again on self-awareness. Why? Because it's that self-reflection and that insight into yourself in terms of what triggers any anxiety, stress, feeling of being overwhelmed, and maybe being a bit stubborn. So that's the first thing you need to do, is really reflect on those triggers and work on that self-awareness in terms of what's going on with you. So number 2 is really understand your zone of genius. Now, there's another module on zone of genius that I want you to watch, and if you already have, watch it again. The reason why this speaks to this exact topic is because once you are really confident and certain in your ability, where you add value and what you bring to the team, you stop worrying about having to do and be everything. Remember, your role is not to do everything, which takes me to point 3. Remember what your role as a leader is. Your role is actually not to be the one with all the answers. Your role is to have a clear vision, get people to buy into it, create a team environment where people share success and are happy to fail and learn and grow, and a team with diverse thought and experience and skills. That's the way you're going to leverage the best out of your team and your business. So they're my quick tips if you think you're a bit falling prey to needing to be the smartest person in the room. Trust me, the minute you start to deploy these, you'll actually have those triggers in your head that go, no, I think I need to have all the answers, go back to my role, go back to my team, bring them along, and actually be open to other ideas. And of course, the other thing there as well is having a growth mindset. So that's another video. The paradox of leadership is that for many leaders, they try and do so many things that they aren't available to their team at all. How ironic, right? This lesson shares my experience with the chief do-everything officers out there and how it can be detrimental not only to you as a leader, but to your team and your organisation. Getting this right is a critical piece in the self-leadership journey. Remember, if you are the chief of everything, you are the master of nothing and the leader of no one. So don't let that be you. Sense to me, because I see so many leaders that I work with trying to be the chief to everything officer. Bit of firefighting here, bit of reacting there, across everything. And this is what happens when you are trying to do it all. You actually become the master of nothing, the leader of no one, the opposite of what you want as a leader of successful business. Now, of course, why does this happen? Well, it's this same theme, isn't it? It's part ego, part confidence, part, I think, also what we've been brought up to believe in our society is that the busier you are and the more senior you get, the more answers you need to have and the more stuff you need to do. Don't forget that we've come up in the corporate world where the perception of value and effort is based on the time that was spent in the office, the early bird that got in and clocked out last. And of course, that's all changing, isn't it? Especially with new ways of working and flexibility and all the rest of it. Now it's all about contribution, value, and results. So this is what's happening. And like with lots of other things that we talk about, what this will end up doing to you is exhaust you. You will get so exhausted and so overwhelmed trying to constantly do it all, that of course what actually happens is you start going on this spiral of actually being less effective as a leader. Why? Because you're busy doing stuff. So the more you do, the less hours in the day you have, the tighter you get, the less answers you feel like you have. All these things are happening, and of course what is the result of that? You actually become a less effective leader, you're less available for your team, the results suffer, and oh yep, that makes you feel like you're not working hard enough, so off you go again. Yes, I'm speaking from experience. So here are some tips for you if you feel like you need to be the Chief Do Everything Officer. Now, as I've said a few times, go back to defining your role. Now, this is where I always start with leaders I work with. Now, some of you may think that this is kind of obvious. I've got a position description. It's not about the laundry list of all the tasks that you should be doing. The role of the leader is to basically have the vision. That vision, not all the answers, but the vision of where the team's heading to. You know, what's that light on the hill? Then your role is to communicate that. And that's a whole different topic. Communicate, 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 and get your team, your stakeholders, your customers, everyone bought into that. The second thing that you should be spending your time on is making sure that you have the best team. And this means making sure that there's an environment for them to be successful, that there are right behaviours, the right values, the right mix of skills, so that you can actually leverage that success. And that is a full-time job on its own. And the third thing is to remove roadblocks and troubleshoot. Now, you cannot do that if you are doing all the stuff that you feel like you're helping them with by rolling up your sleeves. That actually just makes you less available, less energized, and less capable to problem solve. Thanks so much for watching. To summarize, if you want to be an energized and high-performing leader, you need to learn how to lead yourself first. And you can only do this when you understand what makes you tick, the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is why the best leaders in the world focus so much time and energy on developing themselves. They know that self-awareness and self-reflection are the foundations on which great leadership is built. So thanks for watching. We've loved having you. And let me know in the comments below what clip, insight, lessons resonated with you the most. Share what you might implement into your leadership habits, what tactic you might take away to elevate your leadership style to the next level, and let us know below. It might even inspire a future video. And remember, just improving 1% every day really does play out in the long term.